I'm walking close to my home today around the lakes and the reed beds walk. A walk which I couldn't do a lot during certainly not during the winter. And actually spring as well, pretty much out of bounds because the flooding that we had in this area meant that most of the paths were underwater, as I've said before. Barney, Sir Barkalot, would have ended up looking like some kind of periscope. All you'd have seen is a cockapoo's head poking out of the water. Let me just let's get a sketchbook. I'm in dappled light. Put the letters and your thoughts down there for a moment. I'm in dappled light here. Got the X100. I'm in the woodland, or in woodland, F4, ISO 250, shutter speed 1/2/5, and just a sketchbook to start today's show.
The photo walk.
It's the hard, painful, potentially dangerous kind of walks that just seem to, and I know it sounds very trite, feeds the soul.
That's Glenn of Black Crag, the YouTube channel. And, well, if you've walked the fells of the Lake District, you'll be familiar with crags, though the particular crag in this story could have had altogether a more sinister ending, really, for Glenn. Slight spoiler alert. Pretend you didn't hear me, obviously. So, I'm talking today with somebody who I've been trying to chat with for a while now, and we always seem to miss each other. But at last, the planets have aligned, or the fells have, because I get to talk with Glenn, the man behind this wonderful YouTube channel that takes us on incredible hikes and climbs in all kinds of weather, and even solo overnights on the haunted fells of one of the most beautiful and magnificent parts of the UK, the Lake District. I like this story because even though he's really beginning to establish himself now, he's still in many ways at the sort of, I suppose you could say, nearer end of the journey. He started his channel back in 2018, and he had a very human story goal, really. It wasn't to become YouTuber or Instagram famous. It was, and I think you'll like this, to document the walks as a way to preserve those memories as he gets older. Or if you will, his knees start to creak. I've now formally adopted that phrase as another one of those let's not talk about age, shall we, kind of phrases. For instance, no longer am I aged 56. I am level 56. I stole that from the Indian tennis player Rohan Bopanna. And no longer will I get to the stage of saying I'm too old to climb insert massive mountain range here. I shall simply say, not today, I've got creaky knees. Anyway, what began as a personal project for Glenn quickly gained some media attention, and I think it's fair to say that the YouTube channel is now a proper virtual escape for those who simply adore his wonderfully personable style of presentation. Many of his followers vicariously live adventures through him, particularly when sleeping out in 50-mile-an-hour winds, a story which undoubtedly will come up today. His videos absolutely resonate with people who love the Lake District, the hills, the mountains and the crags, but can no longer hike them due to, try this one on for size now, creaky knees. I am, by the way, fascinated by those who camp alone on the mountains. I mean, I would love to do it, but I know I'd be a tad challenged, mainly because of my overactive imagination. It'd instantly dip into every single scary movie I've ever seen by sundown at 10 p.m. I tell you, if I heard something, I'd be like the fell walking roadrunner. Even if I heard a leaf so much bend in the breeze, I'd be back down the mountain, tucked up in my B&B bed by 10:05. But for Glenn, camping or hiking alone isn't scary, it's a liberating experience. Although we do have some close encounters with something in one or two of his stories today that I think it might have us all fighting for the edges of the B&B duvet.
Today on the photo walk.
We do like your normal videos when you're kind of walking around in the sunshine and what have you, but we want to see you suffer. Being out in the elements, no matter what it's like, especially when it's it hurts a bit and you're a bit uncomfortable. And when I saw the photograph printed, it was a moment of revelation, like, the wind caught the drone and pushed it into my leg, which is not a problem. It kind of hurt a little bit, stung a bit, but I took a step backwards, and behind me was like, I hated nature and I hated that flipping camera. I hated it. But I guess at some point it planted a seed, and as I approached the tent, I saw something or probably somebody stood next to the tent. I was like, what the hell? And I spun the camera around, walked right up to the tent and looked in the long grass around, because I was sure there's somebody there.
That's Glenn, aka Black Crag, and he'll share more of his thoughts about being out in nature, making films and making pictures of the most incredible scenery, not just in the UK, but around the world as well. Welcome along as we make our photo walks together, a show where we walk and we make pictures, photographically sketchbooking our time together each week, enjoying the inspirational stories that you've sent in and listening back to special studio conversations with guests from around the world. I'll take a peek into the mailbag in a moment for a flavour of today's letters into the show, but before that, thank you to our extra milers and MPB who sponsor this show and keep us here week on week. And MPB are such a perfect fit as a sponsor because they're the largest global platform to buy, sell and trade in used photo and video gear, with a commitment to making gear more accessible and more affordable. And that's why I use them personally as well. We haven't talked numbers for a while, so let's have some. MPB now recirculate 570,000 cameras and lenses a year. And why is that important? Well, it extends the life of visual storytelling gear. It's giving a new lease of life to camera kit. What's used to me, for example, is brand new to somebody else. They're rated excellent on Trustpilot with more than 30,000 reviews. That's a number to be very proud of. And their business model is 100% circular. All packaging is 100% plastic free. Plus, their cloud-based platform uses 100% renewable electricity. So, together, let's change the bigger picture, put camera gear in more hands, and keep the story going. Buy, sell, and trade used camera gear, and go to mpb.com/change for more info. In the mailbag and on the show today then, Tim and Tom, which does sound like a duo who should have their own TV show. Tim and Tom walk the Wainwrights in the beautiful Lake District to the UK. This letter couldn't have landed on my writing desk at a better time. Marianne Cohen has been devouring the sublime food pictures from last week's guest, Tim Clinch, and understands why he doesn't call himself a food photographer. We'll do a shutter sync, set you an assignment, share some thoughts about gators and Disney from David Childers, tempt you to a week in the Highlands, and there's some poetry from the path from David Wagstaff-Myers. It's all Tims and Davids this week, well, sort of. Shall we walk then? Checklist out. Coffee, check. Garibaldi's, check. Walking boots, well, they're shoes now, summer here anyway, check. SD cards or a spare roll of film should you need it, check. And some gator gloves, which if I ever need to use in the UK, we should probably start to worry. Or at least my dog Barney should. Let's walk. The part that I'm walking on at the start of this walk, the locals call it the deer park because there's lots of deer here. Deer here. Pups, come this way. Don't go walking off just yet. I'm coming, but just give me a second. I'm talking to my other listener. And my other listener. Yes. Yeah, it's the deer park, or it used to be, where we're standing right now, where you and I are. This would have been rubbish once upon a time. It was the refuse centre. Let me just get a picture so you can see that it's certainly not refuse today. It's been claimed back. Just long grasses and trees, shrubs, bushes. Fantastic. It's gone absolutely wild. And what did I say? About planets aligning, fells aligning. Well, this one aligns in wondrous fashion and is the perfect letter to start with. I shall, of course, leave a link to the work referenced on in our letters today on the show page. What do you mean you've not visited the show page? Oh, they've not visited the show page, pups. Can you believe it? What have you got to say about that? I know. I can't believe it. I know. All right. Now he's getting... Okay. Make sure... Barney's told you. This is the day that you do visit the show page. In your app, for starters, there'll be a link to the show page. There are 437 show pages previous to this, you know, with links and pictures and links and pictures. Right, where do we start? Yes, it's from Tom Warburton. Hello, says Tom. It's taken a while to gather the courage to send this email in to you. I don't know why it should, Tom. It's only me. But I thought you might be interested in my latest little photo project, as it's right up your wheelhouse, as they say. Photos and walks. Tom, as wheel and house were designed to be one word, really, so is photo and walk. So you're right. Me and my pal Tim, says Tom, made the perhaps rash decision to try and walk all the Wainwright hills in the English Lake District in Cumbria in 2024, as that's the year we're both 60. Level 60, Tom, remember, level 60. For your other listener who may not know, and this is why this letter's arrived with such perfect timing, beautifully linking this letter to my guest today. For your other listener who may not know, because we really didn't talk about this too much at the start, my guest Glenn is a fond fan of the Wainwrights, as they're called. The Wainwrights are walks across the fells, the Lake District. The Wainwrights, says Tom, is a list of 214 hills in the Lake District National Park in Cumbria, Northern England land. It's derived from the famous books of one Alfred Wainwright, who outlined walks you could take in the fells and their surroundings. Some, in many people's opinion, shouldn't be in the book at all, as they're not much to look at or walk. Mungrisdale Common, in particular, raises people's hackles, and even Wainwright himself said that Armborth Fell wasn't worth climbing. However, many of the walks are classics, and they include Helvellyn, which I think you'll hear mentioned today, yes. Blencathra, Old Man Coniston, should be an old jazz song, shouldn't it? Or blues song. Scarfell Pike, and many, many others. See, you might think my photo project would be of rolling English mountain landscapes in glorious, vibrant colours. But it's not. For some reason, I've gathered a collection of black and white portraits of the most lovely people I've met while walking. I've really loved chatting to people when we bump into them, and I started asking them if I could take their photo. My daughter helped me overcome any anxiety I may have had in asking by getting me some business cards saying I was a photographer, and on the card is an email that people can contact me on. And then I'll send them their photo. See? Genius, Tom. Genius. So often that small calling card in your pocket, that's like a special powers cloak, isn't it? For so many people. It works for all genres. Come on, pups, this way. Where's he gone now? Come on. You've sort of you've inspired me to make sure I make some cards. Sadly, I won't have them in time for something I'll tell you about later on that I'm doing this weekend, but it's a great idea, and it clearly helped you overcome that anxiety of approaching people. Pass them a business card. I'm a photographer. There's my website. I'll send you this picture. Oh, will you? Fabulous. Yeah, crack on. Make my portrait. This, says Tom, these walks have been going on since the 3rd of January. I've now done around 140 of the hills. So if you started in January, you started in proper cold weather. And some of those hills and mountains can be truly treacherous, very difficult to traverse some of those paths and fells during the winter. We're just going under a bridge. Oh, it doesn't really echo, does it? That was a bit lackluster, wasn't it, pups? Very, he says, looking at me. So it's been going on since the 3rd of January, says Tom, and now I've done around 140 of the hills and amassed quite a collection of photo walk portraits. This link, says Tom, and I will link to it on the show page today, will show you what I've been up to. And let me tell you, it's worth going to. It's at least I'd say actually, if you look at the whole of his site, it's probably a packet of Garibaldis and 2 or 3 coffees. It's not very good for the diet, his site, but it's wholesomely good for the eyes. If you look around my website, beyond this page, you'll see my other projects, says Tom. Overseas trips to Ukraine, which was fascinating. India, the Gambia, Ecuador, as well as UK-based photos of family, friends, Appleby Horse Fair, musicians and other such subjects. There's also a collection of my COVID in Newcastle photographs, which has been printed as a charity fundraiser photo book by Tynebridge Publishing. Still available. My why, says Tom, is now that I love recording my adventures, big and small, and I love the interaction with people I meet along the way. I've hundreds of old slides from my backpacking world tour days in the 1980s, and I hardly look at any of the photos of the landscapes, the majestic rivers, the trees, the mountains. No, the ones I treasure are of the people I met along the way. So after 45 odd years of photography, I guess that's my why. Just recording my little adventures and the lovely people I meet along the way. My friend Tim and I have known each other for over 45 years now and started our photo obsession in the school darkroom in around 1980. Tim went on to study art and photography at university and is now a talented and very successful landscape artist. It's hilarious that we go on the same walk together and I come back with a load of slightly gritty black and white photographs of strangers, and he comes back to his studio and paints a gorgeous, colourful landscape painting. Thanks again from Tom. I will link to Tim Watson's work as well so that you can see his paintings. So Tom's and Tim's links will be on the show page today. Tim's mixed media work, it's just beautiful. I do love etched words on paintings. And the rest of your own website, Tom, the portraits, well, they're fabulous. I was drawn, of course, to the Gambia, as you might have expected me to be, because of our adventure earlier this year there. Just beautifully intense looks on those that you've met, who really do underline why the place is called the Smiling Coast of Africa. But also you've got me thinking about this visit I'm making to the steam fair this weekend. You've got me thinking portraits. Though I'll have to go bravely sans calling cards. Links to Tim and Tom's super work will be on the show page. I think I've mentioned it enough time, Barnes, now, haven't I? Enough times? I think I have. He's looking at me. You don't need to bark at me again for that. We've mentioned it. Consider it mentioned, pups. Put it down in the notes. Duly mentioned, yes. Done. If, like Tim, you've been meaning to write for a while, then make this the week that you do, because I did think only this morning that it's time for you to put digital pen to paper. Yeah. Tell me about where you walk, what you photograph, and like Tim, you might want to attempt the why question, and then that'll be just perfect. The holy, not so holy trinity of thoughts in one letter. Talking of letters, did you like how I seamlessly linked? We have a newsletter for the show now. It gives you notice of all the new and extra editions, so you never miss a show. There are photo assignments, there's requests for particular features that we'll be running, and something that I've spied during the week that I think you may enjoy either in photography or walking land. Actually, this week it's neither. It's something that Sean Tucker told me about, which I was really taken by. Really, I was. It was so inspirational. Lots of trains. Can you hear them? Yeah? The pinstriped expresses. I'm going to get a picture back along the path, actually, because it's a beautiful sunny day today. We've got, well, almost Toy Story clouds, not quite. But let's get this. Shutter speed 2900 f4. In fact, let's have f5.6 here. 160 ISO back along the path. And there's a cyclist coming along. So, pups, come over here. Here. Good boy. And if I'll get some sort of context, I suppose, or scale. Although you can see the scale by the path. But here we go. A couple of pictures back along the path. Cyclist coming along. There we go. Morning. Morning. Looks like he's off wild camping. He's got all his tents and stuff on the back. Perfect, pups, eh? Perfect. A quick letter before our guest. Here's one from Marianne Cohen, responding to last week's show. Hi, Neil. I'm a long-time listener to your podcast. I live in America land, as you call it, and enjoy picturing your walks in my head. Well, you can have them on the show page today as well, Marianne. I've had the pleasure of visiting your country several times, and I thought it's quite beautiful. And the people have always been warm and friendly. I think, we are a pretty friendly bunch, really, I think, in this country. After your recent broadcast with Tim Clinch, I like that. Broadcast. See? Marianne, you're using words that are close to my soul. I had an expert comment that I shouldn't use analogue words in podcasting, things like programme, which I know I've used. He'd have had a proper wobble if he heard us lot talking about broadcast here. And letters. Oh, what do you think you'd make of letters? Letters, Neil? No. DMs, my son. Emails if you must, or better still, pings. Pings. So yes, a ping here from Marianne Cohen. See, it doesn't work, does it? I like the letter. I'm very happy to entirely disregard his advice on this one. I might even start writing with a quill again. I should show him 1001 Instagrammers under the age of 21 who've all started using film and are listening to vinyl. Ping. Anyway, Marianne says, not pings. After your recent broadcast with Tim Clinch, I looked at his photographs on the Photo Walk website. They are gorgeous. These are indeed not food photography, they are truly art. The compositions are perfect and the colours are deep and rich and beautiful. I feel like I want to go into a song. His skill is impressive. Thank you for bringing him to my attention. I enjoy the show. It's a respite from all the noise and chaos of the world. Every week I look forward to escaping with you and Barney for a walk in England land. Well, here we are this week, Marianne, walking along the path. Your devoted listener, Marianne Cohen, from Huntington Beach, California. Now, that sounds nice. Marianne, we are devotees of the path ahead together by the sounds of it. Now, I always have to think, there's dogs here. Are they on a lead? I don't know. Marianne, can you look ahead? No, they're not on a lead, are they? Can you see? I can't see out the other side, Neil. Yes, you can. Look a bit harder. No, I think we're okay. Barnes, you can stay off the lead. They're friendly. This week's guest, then. Oh, we're coming up to the lock here. I think we'll rest here, have a Garibaldi, cup of coffee for a couple of minutes. This week's guest, well, I've already told you a fair bit about him in the introduction to the show. His name is Glenn. You know that bit. His YouTube and Instagram name is Black Crag. You know that bit, which will be explained, by the way, that name within our chat. And I feel like, come on, pups, this way. I feel like this chat today is really an introduction to Glenn, one which is waiting for a kind of season 2. And that second meeting will most certainly be a walk with him to a particular place I've yet to walk in the Lake District. One that it's a walk I so dearly want to make, because it's a place that I talked about walking with the late Niels Armelinks. At the end of our chat, Glenn suggested we meet and make a walk in a film, which I am bang up for making. Careful, Neil. Bang up for making. You'll be saying awesome next. Which, whilst I mention that word, would be entirely appropriate for this conversation today. The A word, because where Glenn walks is simply awesome in terms of the striking and physically breathtaking landscape. I think to do it true justice as a show, or a broadcast, as Marianne says, I'd probably need to be stood right in it. So that's my excuse for going to visit Glenn. So here's one of two parts today with my guest, my conversation with my guest, Glenn, aka Black Crag.
From your website, Glenn, I'll normally be found on a fell side or rummaging around in a deep gill somewhere because the Lake District is more than just my home, it's my lifeblood. I actually need to be out there in the wilds, in all weather, and preferably lost. Without it, I become a very grumpy sod. Would your friends and family attest to that? Is that true?
Definitely. But I do need to rewrite that. That's awful.
No, it's not. I think it's lovely. Yeah, but I work in a photographic industry where people say I love to eat cupcakes and stuff, and I think, oh my God, not another cupcake eater. So to hear somebody say I'm a grumpy old sod when I'm not doing what I love, I think it's a breath of fresh air, quite literally in your case.
It is true though, yeah, absolutely. It's being outside and being out in the elements, no matter what it's like, especially when it's it hurts a bit and you're a bit uncomfortable. There's something really special about that, really special. It touches you very deep inside.
Well, it's interesting you say that when it hurts, because when I watch your films, there are times when I think, well, if you can watch something and feel something, and that comes through in a photograph as well, and with, if I'm thinking, God, I feel cold.
Yeah.
There are moments where you do, and the suffer for your art is a cliche, but you really do.
Yes, and there's been a few people that say, we do like your normal videos when you're kind of walking around in the sunshine and what have you, but we want to see you suffer. We want to see you in the rain, in the snow, in your tent, hungry and wet and cold and miserable.
It's by proxy that they're climbing these hills and stuff and thinking, well, we don't have to do it if Glenn can suffer it for us.
Exactly. And yes, they say exactly that as well. I'm tucked up in bed watching you doing it for us.
Yeah. Actually, the other part of the bio, which I love from your website, and please don't change this bit, it features a pretty poor example of bad parenting, as you call it. It's you and your sister sitting on what looks like a rock pointing out over a sheer drop, and you're on the end of it with your sis.
Yeah.
You're at one with nature, but it's pretty clear to me that from a very early age you loved nature.
Not really, no. Oh. I think that's probably more my dad. He was the photographer. He was the guy that had the camera and this is like back in the 70s, and the light meter and everything. I hated nature, and I hated that flipping camera. I hated it. But I guess at some point it planted a seed.
But you didn't pick up the camera actually that early though, did you? It was in your teens when you picked the camera up, wasn't it?
I think I was around about 10, I think it was.
Right. Oh, okay, before.
So my dad, I think he was a bit sick of me just hanging around the house or what have you. Yeah. And he bought me an old, it was a brand new SLR.
What was it? Do you remember which one it was?
I do, yeah. It was, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. It was a Yashica.
A Yashica, yeah.
Yes,
I've got an old Yashica lens which I stick on the end of my X Pro 1. Yeah, love it. Wow. It's proper beaten up. You'd love it.
Well, the thing is, I've lost that camera.
Oh no!
I know. I lost it about 7 years ago. We had a bit of work done on the house, and it was on display before that, and then it must have been put in a box, and then it must have been accidentally thrown out. I was absolutely gutted. So yeah, that's gone. So he bought me that camera, and I remember we went out. We lived in Holland at the time, and we went out. I had no idea what we were doing or why we were doing it. I had no interest in photography at all. This is him pushing it onto me. And he said, what we're going to do is we're going to stand in the street and we're going to take pictures of the cars going past. Yeah. And I didn't understand what the purpose of this was. And I think, long story short, is we're trying to get that motion blur. And so taking a photograph of a car going past with the background blurred. And when I saw the photograph printed, it was a moment of revelation, like, that's what we're doing. Right, I get it. And, I like that. That kind of was fun. And the picture I got, I wish I had it. It's long gone now, but it was an old... Is it a Vauxhall Marina or something like that?
No, it would have been a Morris Marina, wouldn't it? Austin Allegro, Morris Marina. It was a Leyland.
It was a bit longer. It's more of a saloon car. It's a weird one.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, it was the driver. He was looking straight at the camera with the most befuddled look on his face ever. Yeah. That was, that was my first foray into photography.
I was going to say, it's certainly not your first foray into climbing hills. I mean, Holland not necessarily known for its high mountains and its own black crags, is it really?
Not really, no.
I spoke with a friend of the show, and I think a friend of yours, though disown him if you feel it's appropriate. Mally Davis said,
yes,
and I quote, you'll like this, Glenn has got legs like red rum and walks the mountains like a giant.
That sounds fantastic, doesn't it?
Well, maybe that should be in your bio. I don't know.
But, I would take that quote, yeah.
Legs like red rum and walks the mountains like a giant. I mean, you have to have a sure... well, not just an element. I mean, you have to be pretty fit to do what you do.
Definitely. I think there's a certain level of fitness you need for the walking, if you're just going out for a walk in the fells. But then there's a guess, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but there needs to be that extra bit for doing the filming as well, because obviously you're carrying more equipment.
Yeah.
And being mindful of what you're recording, and it doesn't come across that way at all in the videos, but there is some thought going to it. So yeah, there's definitely a level of fitness, and that just waxes and wanes, to be honest with you. It depends on how long the walks I'm doing, or if I'm having a bit of a break, then the fitness goes very quickly. You give it 3 weeks and you're almost back to square one.
You did Mally's bucket list mountain with him.
I did.
Do you remember what one it was?
It was Helvellyn.
It was.
Yeah.
He's talked about nothing else, to be honest.
Oh,
it's almost like he's done it once and he never has to do it again.
Oh, his face was priceless. It really was. Yeah, it was such a joy to go up there with him and experience that through his eyes, you know. So almost just blanking out what I knew of that particular walk, and then imagining what it must have been for him, you know, to see it for the first time. It was magical.
There are some incredible names, aren't there, in the Lake District? And
yes.
Some of them are they don't sound like mountains at all. I mean, I remember for the first time a friend saying to me, we'll go and do High Street together. And I thought, well, that sounds quite easy. What's that? A couple of coffee shops. And High Street is not a couple of coffee shops, is it?
No. It's definitely a significant bump. But yeah, it's a wonderful one. Some fantastic routes up there.
Yeah. We need to fill in some gaps here. So because we're at sort of 10 going into teenage years. And so what then happens with regard photography and a job?
In terms of the photography, I think, I kind of put the camera down for a while, right. But then later on, maybe kind of mid-teens, I got back into picking up the camera again. But it's difficult, you know, because you got pocket money and then you're paying however much for a roll of film, and then you're paying that again to get it developed. So it was tricky trying to work out how to do that. But I spent a lot of time in very strange places, like cemeteries, doing weird, creepy type of stuff, because that is the kind of thing I like.
It's a rite of passage when you're younger. So let's see how creepy we can make this look.
Yes.
So, but moving ahead there then, because starting the walking and starting the exploring and grabbing your boots, when does all this when does it all sort of start to fall
together
into place? Yeah.
That was probably 2003. I came back. So I moved away. I've had a bit of a Forrest Gump type of life. So I was down south for a while. I came back up, moved the family back up, got a couple of kids, and just got into the walking. And did that for quite a few years. And then in 2008, I think it was, I thought, I quite fancy getting. I think it was around about the time when people were saying that digital cameras were, you know, they'd come on a long way. They were as good as the film cameras. And I think I got a Canon 400D or something like that, like an entry-level budget thing, and just didn't remember anything from before. It was a real steep learning curve, but fun, you know, it kind of, bits of it came back, and the beauty of digital is the fact you can try it, and
it's great experimentation.
Yeah, it's a fantastic tool, yeah. So that's when those two worlds started to come together a little bit, the hiking and the photography.
I know you came out of a life of military service, for a while at any rate, and I know you're someone who very much subscribes, Glenn, to the great outdoors as being a catharsis. And at times when you've where you've needed her, Mother Nature's been somewhat of a healing force in your life, I think, hasn't she?
Yeah, it is the great leveler. It's just, it puts everything into perspective. So whatever problems you might have, personal problems, or even just kind of like a technical problem you're perhaps working on at work, just getting out there and just forgetting all of it. I mean, I go walking every day. I do a 4-mile walk every single day. And there's days where I go out there where I just feel despondent,
Yeah.
Or even, like I said, technical things like, I can't work out how to do that. By the time I come home, it's all sorted. Or it's either all sorted or it just doesn't matter anymore. It's not that important.
Yeah. Are you an early riser then? I mean, I would imagine you probably are. You're out there early walking.
I'd like to be, and I was for a while, a 5 o'clock riser every day. And I love the idea of doing that. But I don't know what it is. As I'm getting older, I'm finding it harder to get up early. So, yeah, we'll work on that one, I think.
Yeah. So, black crag then.
Yes.
What is? Not everybody will know what a black crag is, where it is. And we need to fill that gap as well, because that's what your YouTube channel is called.
Yes. It all started on Instagram. So when I set up my Instagram account in, I think it was 2017, it was called Photos by Glenn.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't want my name on there. I want something different, just something unidentifiable, a little bit unique, whatever. Maybe a little bit of mystique.
Well, there certainly is, because I don't know whether to call you Mr. Well, when I first saw it, I thought, is he Mr. Crag or?
Oh no, I get called Craig a lot.
Do you? Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I was racking my brains trying to work out what to call the Instagram account. It wasn't really me as such, it was just the account, That week I went for a walk up Scafell, and I went onto a little crag that kind of sits on the side of Scafell Crag called Black Crag.
Right.
Got my drone up, flew around a bit. It's a little bit windy. Brought it back in, and the wind caught the drone and pushed it into my leg, which is not a problem. It kind of hurt a little bit, stung a bit, but I took a step backwards, and behind me was like a few 100-foot drop. So it was like a moment of sheer panic. I just dropped on the ground like, oh my God, I almost stepped off this crag. And as I was walking back to the car, I thought, there you go. There's a good name.
One of the dangers of flying drones, they don't pop into the manual. Glenn is known for his personable style of filmmaking. As I've said, his wondrously inviting way of teaching, and here's a few moments from his growing YouTube channel.
This one's been on my hit list for a lot of years. Since the first time I drove down Rannoch Moor and saw that pyramidal-shaped mountain, I thought, I've got to get up there. Right, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to head down Glencoe proper, down into the valley, and go and check out the Three Sisters, because they are absolutely stunning. The scenery there is just mind-blowing. Definitely a shot-worthy day today. There's all sorts going on. Anything could happen, so I'm quite excited. Let's get there before it all goes.
There are a handful of places in the world that can truly be described as epic.
I mean, look at that. That's lovely.
It is the kind of place you could imagine. Dick Turpin, I think, wasn't it? This is magic, honestly. I had no idea.
So, Glenn, a close disaster really is to blame for your branding.
That's right. So it was on Instagram, and then that moved on to YouTube, and obviously my website, and it just stuck really. So it's proved quite, I guess, successful.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I mean, you recently made the leap as well.
I know.
I mean, it's a leap of faith.
It really was, yeah.
But you've done it. You're a YouTuber full time. Does that sit easy with you, by the way? That
it just sounds so weird.
Do you march into when you march into a pub and somebody says, "Go on then, Glenn. What are you?" I mean, do you say, "I'm a YouTuber," or is it, "Well, I'm a YouTuber actually"?
It feels weird. In fact, if anybody says, "What do you do?" I'll say, "Well, I'm a photographer." It just kind of sits a bit better.
Yeah.
Or if I see people out, say, because obviously I get questioned when I'm out on the fails, like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Because you can see I'm filming stuff. Like, "What are you doing?" Oh, I'm just making videos for YouTube. Oh, right, that's cool, yeah. And then they kind of say, what do you do for a living? Well, it's this. I do this. Oh, and suddenly they kind of take you seriously because you are then a full-time YouTuber. So it seems to have some sort of weight nowadays, I think.
I think it does. I mean,
full-time YouTuber.
I remember going to my kids when they were at primary school. I mean, they were a bit older now, but when they were just one of them leaving primary school, there was a board with all the "what do you want to do when you grow up" written all across it. Now, in my day, it would have been things like astronaut, train driver, and stuff like
yes.
that.
pilot.
But it's the first thing that caught my eye was YouTuber. I mean, that's how much it's changed.
I was just going to mention that, actually. Yeah, the number one occupation that kids want to be is a YouTuber.
Is that right?
Absolutely fascinating.
Was there a number or a metric in your mind where you said, okay, Glenn, let's do this now? Because, you have to have a channel that's got, reasonable amount of subscriptions and fair engagement before you make that leap, or not necessarily, I don't know, or do you?
Well, my YouTube journey's been a bit of a weird one.
Right.
Let me explain.
Yeah.
So I set it up in 2018. I had a YouTube account from 2009. I used to put just, family videos on there, just daft things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until 2018 that I started to upload properly, proper videos. And I did that for 5 years till 2023, last year. And I remember people saying to me, how come you don't put adverts on your videos? It's like, well, nobody puts adverts on their videos. And people were like, no, there's adverts everywhere, all over YouTube. I watched a video of something, I don't know what it was, and I told somebody else about it, and we watched it together on their phone. And it was absolutely peppered with adverts. And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I didn't see any of those adverts. So what I'm trying to say is there was something unique to my YouTube account that made me not see adverts. So I assumed that no one else had adverts on their channels.
You were lucky. You were lucky.
Exactly. I had YouTube Premium, didn't even know about it.
Yeah. I was going to say, because that's the premium life, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
No adverts.
Yeah, and so that was a huge revelation to me. So I thought, right, okay, I need to put adverts on the videos. And it was literally overnight, I could see the difference. And suddenly I was like making a bit of money. And around about the same time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give Patreon a go. And I thought, I might end up just having 2 or 3 followers on Patreon. If I make it as frictionless as possible, that's not a problem. It's worth a go. And boy, was it worth a go. That was the turning point. Patreon was the major turning point.
In no particular order, I want to pick out some of your films, ones that caught my imagination. And we're going to start with camping on one of Britain's most haunted hills. You're going to notice, by the way, a bit of a theme with the ones that capture my imagination. The Old Corpse Road is where you camped. Now,
yes.
I've walked that path with a friend a few years back, and I made a couple of portraits of him in the tumble-down building that you nearly set up camp in, and I don't blame you for not setting up camp in it for reasons. I'll link to the film, by the way, and you'll understand why Glenn did not set up camp in what seems like the most obvious place. But tell me about the Old Corpse Road, and is it really haunted?
I don't know. I don't know if it is haunted. So the Old Corpse Road, so there are various coffin trails throughout the Lake District and other parts of the country as well. You'd have a village, perhaps in one valley, that didn't have a church, and that was the case in Mardale Green, where Haweswater now is. They flooded the village. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no, I find it fascinating.
It's a fascinating. That whole history around there is absolutely fascinating.
That is the reservoir that feeds Manchester, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That and Thirlmere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what they'd do is, I think Mardale Green didn't have a church for a long time, so when people died in the village, they would then take the bodies over the pass and then into Shap Abbey to be interred. So that's why they called it the Old Corpse Road or Coffin Road. There's a coffin trail from Rydal to Grasmere as well, similar sort of story. It sounds like quite a grim place, but as you know, it's a beautiful place.
It's quite wild, to be honest.
It is wild, yeah, absolutely. It has I always thought it had a real Scottish feel to it. That wildness, of Scotland. It has that kind of feel. Different to the rest of the Lake District, or certain parts of the Lake District that are a bit more twee, maybe a bit more gentle. It's a bit grr.
When we were there, we looking down. I haven't been there for a long time now, and you've probably been there a few times since. But the water was receding. The levels were dropping, and you could actually start to see some of the walls and things start appearing.
Yeah, that's really quite eerie, isn't it? When you see that evidence of a past existence of humans,
And we have various reservoirs and places around the UK like that, where some of the buildings start appearing again.
Yeah,
which I find really eerie. So
it is very eerie. Yeah.
What did you feel like that night?
Nothing. To be honest with you, absolutely nothing. I'd heard all the stories about, people hearing whispering voices and things like that. But yeah, I didn't feel anything. Just very calm, very peaceful. It's a very peaceful place.
I am with you. Although I do think you need nerves of steel to do what you do. I mean, you camp out on your own. And I always worry about a couple of things with that. What happens if people sort of come across the place at night? Well, how do you deal with that? And also animals. I mean, encountering wildlife during your stays.
I've never encountered wildlife. Maybe the odd sheep that might kind of move around the tent in the morning and bleat right in your ear. makes you jump out your skin. But yeah, I've never had anybody come across the tent. And I think, and this isn't the case in that particular video because I was kind of out there in the open, but normally I'll tuck myself away, well out of the way of sight of roads and paths and what have you. So no, I've never had anybody come across the tent.
You do have a strong imagination. I mean, I saw the video of when you reported yourself as lost in the woods. I mean, there's a bit of Blair action in that. I like that one.
And it does play havoc sometimes.
Does it?
When, like you say, when you're out at night, it's not ghosts I am bothered about. It's people. That is the scariest thing. And I think I've mentioned this on one of the videos recently. I've got this thing in my head and the thought of it always pops into my head at the worst possible time when it's going dark. I'm outside the tent. I'm thinking, what would be worse? Just hearing the sound of running footsteps coming towards you, boom, 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 out of the dark.
Yeah.
Or just rummaging around in your tent or in the bag and then looking up and there's someone just stood right next to you.
I don't have hair on the top of my head, but if I did, it would be raising. In fact, I think you've just made some hairs come out and raise because that's the sort of thing I'd think about.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure your dog Finn, the Finster.
No,
I'm not sure the dog would. I don't know.
Bottom of the sleeping bag. That's where she'd be.
Yeah. I've got that feeling. Same with my Barney. The weather can just turn, can't it? I mean, some of your films start in decent weather. And by the time you're a few minutes in, it's a different story altogether. Coniston Old Man is a great example, which is a very recent one, isn't it? Coniston Old Man.
Yes.
It is. What kind of safety and emergency kit do you need to carry with you? Because you are a seasoned walker, hiker, climber, and you know the dangers of being out on your own.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, really. I think, like we said at the beginning of the show, it's the hard, painful, potentially dangerous kind of walks that just seem to, and I know it sounds very trite, feeds the soul,
No, it doesn't sound trite at all. It sounds,
but in terms of safety, I mean, I always carry map and compass. So I always use my phone for navigation if I need it. The thing is, I do know the Lake District a lot, so I don't really refer to that often, but I do have a map and compass just in case, because you can get on the top and it can be completely clagged in and you lose your bearings completely. That's very easy to do. I think it's a good idea if you are someone who goes out quite a lot, just to practice every now and then, just practice taking a bearing and just getting the map out and getting the compass on the map and having a play around, because it's surprising how quickly you can forget. I've learnt it 3 times now in my life. I've learnt it in the Scouts and then forgot. Learnt it again in the army and then forgot, and then relearnt it again on a mountain leader training course that I did a couple of years ago, which I'd highly recommend to anybody.
And Glenn returns shortly to the show for part 2 of our conversation today. Thank you for the poetry for the path that's starting to come in now. And this week's is from David Wagstaff-Myers, whose website I will link to on the show page today. Much appreciated, David. Hi, Neil, he says. Just thought I'd send you a short poem inspired by your podcast.
In dawn's soft light, the rain does dance. A misty veil, a sweet romance. With camera poised, I tread the way through emerald fields and skies of grey. Raindrops glisten on leaves and grass like tiny jewels where I pass. The lens, my eye, my trusted friend, captures moments that never end. Puddles mirror skies of slate, reflecting dreams that resonate. I capture droplets as they fall, tiny worlds in nature's thrall. Through countryside my journey winds, a symphony of heart and mind. In rain's embrace my spirit soars, with every shot the beauty roars. The camera clicks a rhythmic beat, in harmony with rain's soft sheet. A rainy morning's tender heart, immortalized in photographic art.
And my thanks to David Wagstaff-Myers for poetry along the path today. If you have a poem that embraces your love of walking or photography or both, send to stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. In fact, that's the same address to send your pictures to as well. Your contributions, where you're walking. Show us where you've trod, where you've who you've met actually along the path would be relevant and pertinent to today's programme, wouldn't it? And on that note, would you like to come on an adventure together? You see, India is almost full, although we have, I think, a space or two left. But we do have a space if you'd like to come on retreat with me and a handful of like-minded, wonderful photographers to Scotland between the 15th and 21st of September. The first week of the Scottish retreat this year, fully booked, no spaces. There's only the second week available. And for one space, as it is at the moment, the Scottish Week celebrates the feeling our podcast brings to our amazing community. It really does. It's an opportunity to escape the noise and spend time with like-minded photographers. We'll be embracing some new creative challenges this time, including darkroom skills, which we've done before on the, but it's never the same twice, is it? Which we've done before on this Scottish retreat. We'll also be doing some creative writing, learning about creative writing, which we haven't done before, which is such an important skill. Never overlook the skill of writing. My eldest, Jack, he said to me the other day, he said, "I like your writing, Dad." And there was a sort of mushy moment there. I was kind of like, oh, you do you? Creative writing or writing is something that, I find that as cathartic as the photography quite often. We'll be learning how to make sound a part of your stills photography. And of course, we'll be having a breakaway as we encourage, talk with, eat with, laugh with, and of course, walk with each other. I thought what I'd do this time, actually, is just package up a short sound montage from last year so you can hear some of the moments from that wonderful week which we host, or 2 weeks this year, which we host in Scotland, in the Highlands. Before you take this picture, or make this picture, the light here has really changed because we've got light on the stone and you're stood in the light.
Fine, I'll move around here.
Right. Now my arm holding the microphone is now going to be in the light. Hold on. If only you could see this. Right, you'll have to use your imagination, but...
There's a lot of effort going into this shot.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's a very satisfying clunk, isn't it?
It's a good click.
Hey?
Yeah, it's a good click.
Spring, summer, fall is very much bird season, and then winter time is very much owl season when I do have a chance to go. But I mean, if I go off and wander downtown somewhere, I don't mind street, kind of learning that. I don't know whether I'm any good at it or not, but it's fun and that's all I count.
So you do street photography then? Of
Yeah,
people?
I do.
Yeah.
Not loads. Sometimes I like more without the people in the street than I do with the people in the street. Sometimes it's just whatever it is when you go out. It's just when you need to get out and go do something, or you need to find your little corner of the world and everything's quiet and you can just go and photograph.
I've loved the food as well.
The food's been wonderful. The places we've been have been really wonderful. I mean, I'm standing here now on the edge of this gorgeous loch looking at these mountains. It has rained 5-6 times since we've been here, and we've had sunshine 5-6 times. I almost lost my sunglasses because they blew away in the high gale that blew through. So we've had a lot of variation, and we've only been here an hour and a half.
Yeah, on this loch. Actually, had we not had some rain, we would not have seen a double rainbow that was quite literally dropping into the water.
And when it was, I think we could have found the pot of gold right there in the middle of this loch.
Well, we could have swum to it.
True, or paddled. I don't know how deep it is.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I'm going to put the light out, so if
Kind of got an idea.
you'll be able to go where you are. I'm going to put the light out, and then I'm going to walk to the end of the enlargers and stay there, and then you can start. Okay, everybody happy?
Yeah.
That chorus of excitement.
Convincing. Everybody happy?
Yay! Okay, light going out now. 1, 2, 3.
It was light just kissing the edges of each undulation. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Did you know that was happening as it was appearing before you in the tray?
When it was appearing before me in the tray, because of the red light, it makes it look really dark, and I thought I was just going to end up with a black sheet of paper. And when you finally get it out into a sort of natural light, you go, oh, you can just tell the pine tree there and the sphagnum moss, which is... No, it wasn't sphagnum moss, I don't think.
I think was it... No, it wasn't ferns either, was it?
No, it was quite smooth. And it was an evening light. And
I think it was groch.
Yeah.
I'm entirely making that up, but it sounded very Scottish.
There's no one particular type of photography that I like.
Yeah.
I like to shoot what I see. So in general, and that has been mostly either portraits or landscapes.
Yeah. What are you eating, Judith? Are you foraging?
It's a blaeberry.
A blaeberry?
Mm-hmm. Never heard of them.
Never heard of a blaeberry.
Neither.
Oh, how did you know it was called a blaeberry?
Because Lynn just told me.
You were coming across so well as an expert then.
Different people come and go. As we're here now, we've made this week our community, our time, and I hope we do this again. I hope I see all of you again.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous today. These are the days. I'm walking with Barney, so that's wonderful. Walking with my camera, walking with you, with my microphone, and your letters, your thoughts. Slight breeze. Just walking through a sort of dappled path, as it were. So there's, and just enough comfort in terms of a shade from what is turning out to be an absolutely beautifully sunny day. The only thing that slightly ruined it there was the noise of a truck reversing in the distance. But Barnes is enjoying it. He's loving it. He's in the water here. You right, Barnes? You okay? Do you know, sometimes I wish you could just say, yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Hey, just look at you. He's having his best time, living his best life. Don't go in that one, though. That's a creek. There may be gators in that creek. Next week is Social Media Week. It's our Friends of the Show week as well, so I'll have chats with some of the names you've gotten to know quite well through these walks that we make together, such as Valerie Jardin, Giles Penfowl, Mally Davis and Sean Tucker, although they'll all be talking about how they use social media and their relationship with social media. I've called it an ultimate guide to social media. Notice the word an. The title may yet change with a week to go. It could be a bit of a binary subject in some respects, in the do you like it, yes or no stakes. So I've served up some left and right turns along the path, particularly when it comes to talking with Sean Tucker. So yeah, next week, if you want to get in some thoughts about social media, there's still some time. Come on, pups, this way, to send me a letter with your thoughts to stories@photowalk.show. All right, let's have a letter. This one is from David Childers, who will have a link on the website. Lots of links, by the way, on the website today. Hi, Neil. I'm a photographer in Orlando, Florida, and wanted to say hello ahead of your trip here. My wife and I have lived here for 10 years, and she's actually a pastry chef at the Disney Resort. Hang about. Does this mean I can pull some favours, perhaps even flavours here? I'm hearing the words pastry and chef in one sentence and thinking along kind of Homer Simpson. Although we're not staying on the resort, so perhaps I should just say do at the end. But a pastry chef at Disney. Hey? I've had a photography career, says David, spanning nearly all genres over the past 16 years. Everything from weddings to Korean pop star stadium concerts and even an editorial project at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where I was able to access and photograph a lot behind the scenes that are usually off limits. This is now the third week in a row that we've mentioned space and the Kennedy Space Center, the stars are quite literally aligning. I'll link my website, says David, for you to see some of my work, and I've linked in turn for you, David. It's on the show page. I think you'll find the landscape and editorial sections the most up your alley, including a Disney castle fireworks shot your son might love. I talked about how my son Jack really loved that part of the occasion. He's come on, pups, this way. He's 16 now, going on 26, and he said before we were absolutely confirmed for this trip, he said, I hope if we go back, I hope, he said, that we visit Disney. And it wasn't the place that I thought he might pick. I thought he might go straight for Universal or the new, it wasn't there at the time, the new water theme park, or just all manner of different places. But I wasn't really expecting Disney. I've been listening to the podcast for a while, says David, and enjoying discovering many new great photographers through it and learning about the wide variety of approaches and reasons why we're all drawn to the art form. Thanks for the great approach and sharing not only your guests' experiences with the audience, but also your own. I was hoping, David, as it goes, to do a meet-up, but with family plans, it became a bit too complicated, which I suppose it just gives me a proper reason to come back specifically for a photo walk, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Either way, feel free, says David, to reach out if you have any questions about the parks or Orlando in general. Happy to help. It'll likely be over 40C during the summer months. I don't remember 40 as the temperature last time we went. So bring plenty of sunblock, I was certainly planning to, and some of those cooling towels. In brackets, they really work. I've never heard of them. Cooling towels. And drink twice as much liquid as you think you should. And yes, that includes beer. Hope your family has a great time here. All the best, David Childers. Thank you, David. Go see the link to his work on the website. The music work is fabulous, as are all the portfolios, though I was particularly taken by the landscape page, and I'll tell you why. For starters, you do live in a beautiful country. You could have 2, 3, 4 lifetimes, and I think you'd only really touch is the expression the edges? Or if I've got it wrong, I apologise. But you wouldn't be able to cover the whole country well enough, would you? It's just so expansive. It's just wonderful. But I love on the landscape pages where you have what you might consider traditionally a landscape picture, but it's mixed with architecture and burger joints, abandoned buildings, cityscapes, and the urban landscapes, if you like. Absolutely wonderful idea. So yes, we're very much looking forward to some time in Floridaville. My mother and father-in-law are generously treating us to some time away, and I do want to stress that, underline that, put it in bold, and CC it to everybody, because often I'm teasing her throughout the show, aren't I? And it hasn't gone unnoticed at times, and I want to underline again, in bold, capital letters, CC and BCC, this one to everybody, that that's myself and my mother-in-law, have a wonderful relationship off mic. We do. We're best of buddies. Come pups this way. But yes, we'll be visiting Disney while we're there, because as I say, contrary to what I thought he might say, my eldest has very, very, very fond memories of the fireworks display over the castle that they have each night. I think it's going to be one of his highlights. It was last time. But I do remember a moment during the fireworks which was really touching. There was a British chap I started talking to who was with his daughter in a group, and his daughter was very, very poorly. And we chatted about his visit. We chatted for, as I say, a good while actually, waiting for the fireworks to start. And you can be as funny as you like, funny as Watsits, as I know some people can be about the whole Disney thing. But when the fireworks went up that night and fizzed and banged and popped and did everything they did over the castle, I spied our sons looking upwards with absolute wonder in their eyes. And that, for me, as a parent, was quite the moment. But I also spied the friend I'd made, if only for a fleeting moment, who was stooped down with his daughter, who was in a wheelchair, and she was smiling, beaming about as widely as it is humanly possible, and he was in absolute bits. I don't know how I drove home or back to our apartment that night. There was obviously a lot of dust in the air. David, thank you for your letter. Perhaps we'll meet. You bring the pastries. I'll bring my mother-in-law. Just make sure you bring some gator gloves. No, not for that reason. For the steaming apples, come on, he says with a glint in his eye. Right, before our second visit to Glen, 2 photographic challenges for you. First of all, we'll do our shutter sync. Although I think we should have just called it 3, 2, 1, click, because that seems to be what you're writing in the title for your messages and for your pictures that you're sending through. But shutter sync it is for the moment. All things can change, as you well know on this programme. What we've been doing is essentially just stopping and taking our cameras out of our pockets or lifting them to our eyes. Smartphones very, very much included at this moment. For those who are driving, I assume that your passenger will be at the wheel, he says, looking over his glasses at you. We have a few like that. But I'm sure that's what's going on. It's all done with safety in mind. And then essentially I just do a countdown. I do it as well. 3, 2, 1, and then we make a picture. So let's do one now, shall we? Let's make a picture. I'll put my letters and notes down there. Go for the camera. Come on then, reach for your camera. Reach for the camera. So as I say, smartphones very much included in this. Whatever camera you have on you. In my case today, the X100V. It's going to be a very easy picture that I'm selecting to make. I'm looking straight ahead, f8, 500th shutter speed, 160 ISO. Right, I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1, and then we'll do the click together. This is where you are, all in sync, making pictures as we walk together. Then I'd like you to send them in so I can see where you made your picture as you were listening to this programme. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Done, done, done. What else? Oh yes, the assignment this month is set by former guest John Dolan. It's another one of our one-worders. The assignments are all one-worders this year. John Dolan has woven a career in advertising, editorial and fine art photography over the past 30 years. He's the author of The Perfect Imperfect, the wedding photographs of John Dolan, published by Damiani Books. This way, pups. Oh, God. He's gone through to the... Come on, you've got all this lovely river here and you're choosing the muddy brook. Recent clients include Naomi Biden. I tell you what, when a president's daughter chooses you, you know you're roughly on the right tracks. I knew when I asked John to set this month's one-word assignment that it would most probably have something to do with his quest to show that a picture doesn't have to be perfect. Just the moment. So here is John with a reminder of what he's looking for this month's assignment.
I think it's obvious, but I think for people to try to do the imperfect, to make a picture that tells the truth without explaining too much, I think that would be a good assignment.
Imperfect.
There you go.
Make a good title for a book.
Perfect.
Good luck. Send your entries and letters to stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. Entries for the assignment, letters for the show. 2,500 pixels wide, please, for your pictures. If you can optimize them for web, please. Don't worry if you can't. I haven't said this for a couple of weeks. I will do the heavy lifting for you. I'd like to return to my conversation, shall we? With Glen, aka Black Crag. And if you have an overactive imagination, this second part may well have you looking over your shoulder.
1 year ago, solo mountain camp that pushed me to the limit. These are great titles, by the way. We'll come to talking about titles in a while. But it's another one of those starts of a walk in half decent weather, but it doesn't end up that way. Just how close to the limit were you? I mean, 50-mile-an-hour winds and a lake forming under your tent. I mean, there must be moments where you say, Glenn, what am I doing?
Yeah, I'm not a God-fearing person at all, but even I was at one point in the morning, around about 3 in the morning, I was praying to God.
Really?
It actually got that serious. It was what you see in the footage isn't as bad as it got. I just had to stop filming. It was just ridiculous. I thought, this is crazy, just doing this for YouTube.
I know you stopped the film, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And it wasn't really, I didn't really do it for YouTube as such, but I thought it's just not worth it now. This is crazy. Let's just get through the night. I'm literally having to sit here and hold the tent up. This is pretty crazy. It just keeps coming right down. I don't know how much it can take. I've got hours of this yet. I'll catch up with you later on.
And then you turn the camera off. You did say, actually, during the film, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
When your camera was off, what was going on?
So I was sat there for about 3 hours just holding onto the tent, so in the dark as well. It's in the cold, the dark, and the wind was just getting stronger and stronger. So I sat there holding the front of the tent up, and the door was just pushing in. The worry I had was the zips were going to fail eventually, and the whole tent just be inflated and then blown off the mountainside.
Yeah.
That was the fear.
It looked uncomfortable. Although you're very comfortable with your own company, it seems.
I'm very comfortable with my own company, yeah. Probably unhealthily so.
Yeah. But, I mean, to do what you do, there are films, and we'll come to one in a short while, where you do go out with people. But generally it's you, isn't it? It's you and you and you.
Yeah. And I find even when I go out with just my camera, just on like a photography day, not filming a video, just being out by myself, and I'm sure you feel the same way, that you can stop whenever you want. And I think I'll sit here for half an hour and just wait for that bit of light there to do this. I'd like to say I'm not antisocial. I do like when I go out in the morning on my walks. That time alone is important, I think. Yes, I think it is, absolutely. I think it gives you that recharge as well. Certainly, personally, I find that if I have time by myself, I can then, it sounds weird to say perform, but I perform better with other people. You know, I kind of integrate better into a conversation or a group of people and contribute more. And maybe that's just an introvert thing. I don't know.
I mean, you described yourself to me before we turned the recording on. You said, I'm an introvert. I'm not really looking forward to this. If you don't mind me saying that bit.
No, not at all, no. I'm looking forward to it, but dreading it.
Dreading it, okay. But yeah, that's the introvert-extrovert thing. You most certainly sit, by the sound of it, and what you've said, in the introvert camp. But it serves you well for what you do.
It does, yeah. Luckily, what I do, it has no impact, really. Being an introvert just means things like this, I guess, is just hugely taxing in terms of energy.
Isn't that fascinating? Because you're a YouTuber.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm by myself.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, isn't it? It's although there is an audience there, and they are a fantastic audience, I am essentially by myself talking to myself.
Well, that is an interesting thing, because I think you're a very, very personal, I mean, you can hide your blushes here, but I believe you're a very personable presenter. And actually,
kind of you.
Spare your blushes twice over, because my wife and I we were both watching one of your films, and she said to me, here's a presenter that could be on the BBC doing this. This is somebody who could be doing Nature Watch or something. I just, I'm with him. Careful, love, don't be too much with him. But you do have that very, very personable approach.
Yes. And I think I have certain people that I kind of visualize.
This is really interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm very lucky in that I've got my Patreon, like I mentioned, the group, and maybe last year there was a big push on YouTube. All the YouTube gurus were saying things like, you need to have an avatar of your audience. You need to be able to visualize who your audience is. And I was like, who the hell is my audience? I don't know who my audience is. I've got no idea until I set up Patreon and we met up. I have like a couple of meetups So when I'm talking to them. They are the small group there that I can kind of visualize.
Yes.
I think originally when I first started the channel, I was just talking to my wife because the videos were very much just a personal record and like a diary.
Almost like a diary, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you prepare mentally for a shoot in a new and unfamiliar location? I mean, you know the lakes very well. You've already said that. I reckon you could walk it blindfold. But I'm now looking at Everest Base Camp. You went there 4 years ago. How on earth do you prepare for that? Because as proven by Tom Heaton's film, I hope you don't mind me mentioning his name.
No, not at all. Wow.
But sometimes best laid plans and preparation, they don't necessarily conspire together for a perfect outcome. They didn't for Tom, did they? It was tough. It was very tough for him.
I think for most people that go to base camp, they have one goal.
Yeah.
And that is to get to base camp.
Yeah.
Whereas I and Thomas as well had other goals, as in get to base camp, but also document getting to base camp. And that just takes things to a whole different level.
In what way?
More gear. So you're carrying much more than you should be carrying. Constantly thinking about charging gear as well, because there's not a lot of places to charge all your batteries and what have you. And then thinking about the shots. I mean, honestly, I look back at those videos now and I just cringe because a lot of it's filmed on the 360 camera. I'd love to go back and redo it again and do it justice properly. But that aside, you're still thinking about, right, I need to go and film that. I need to go and film this and show that and da-da-da. You know, so you're just on it all the time. Whereas maybe people who you're walking with, they've down tools for the day. Feet up, you know. So it is tough in that sense, and obviously the lack of oxygen is a big thing.
That airport, by the way, I've watched the planes coming in and out of that place. Those who want to go to Everest have to. There's a lot of pioneering going on that journey, but that looks like one of the most frightening landing and departure places on this planet.
Well, you know what they say: the cameraman never dies. That's why I was filming all of it.
I don't know that expression, but I like that.
That is an expression that people use on YouTube. The cameraman never dies. So if you're filming something, you'll be fine. And to be honest with you, it just took my mind off it because that was an absolutely horrendous flight.
Yeah.
The turbulence, wow, never felt anything like it.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, because you're flying lee side and all sorts of sides, aren't you, really?
Yeah, and you've got the pilots there with his leather jacket, you know, the sheepskin lined leather jacket and flying goggles. You're like, this is Indiana Jones. All I need now is a chicken to run down the middle. That's it.
It's not for the faint-hearted, but I mean, I've seen the films taken on GoPros, etc., looking through the cockpit window, and you're thinking, all right, where's the runway? That's the runway?
Yeah.
No, surely not.
You've only got one chance, so if they cock it up,
you can't mess it up.
Into the wall.
And the other way, when you sort of fire down, it's like I always think that the departure of that plane must be like when you're in your, I don't know, when you made your first go-kart and push yourself down a 1 in 2 and hope that you'd still be in one piece at the end of it.
It's very much like that, yeah.
The film Night Hiking, who the hell does that? Now, the last time I did a night hike was, 40-odd years ago. It's a very pertinent question that you ask in the title because, yes, who the hell does do that? I'm glad to see, by the way, you did this one with a friend. I'm not quite so sure I could have done that one on my own.
Yeah, that's my boy. That's Josh. Yeah, he was up for the week, I think.
Yeah.
And he's always, when he comes up, like, right, Dad, we need to go and do a big mountain. And it always works out. Something happens, we can't do it. So I said, come on, let's just go out at night. We'll go and do a night hike and we'll film it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I think if anybody's into walking and never done a night hike, they should definitely do it. Get a good torch and get out there. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Familiar places become very different.
Oh, they're totally different, aren't they?
Yeah.
The titling of films, I mean, Night Hiking, who the hell does that? And the other ones that I've talked about. It's one giant part of the battle of I try not to say the word baiting people because clickbait is one thing. I think you need a sense of being truthful when you name a video with what you actually present within the video. I think you know what I mean by that, and I think yours don't step the wrong side of that. But they are very, very important, aren't they?
They are. Yes, I think they call it ethical clickbait now, don't they? So it's something that baits people in, but you do deliver on that promise when you're in the video.
Yeah.
But it's so tricky to do because if I'm just going out for a walk, I don't really know what the hell's going to happen out there. Most of the time, it's just a walk, and it's beautiful scenery, but it's not enough to draw people in. So it is a fine line to walk, really. But yeah, the titles are absolutely crucial. I mean, we all do the same thing. We all click on the thing that draws our attention when we're scrolling through the feed on YouTube. Oh, that looks interesting. You know, that's kind of generate a bit of curiosity. I need to find out more about that. So it's difficult to do that for a hiking video, unless stuff goes wrong.
Or you're telling a story. I mean, let me play a moment from this film. Moment of terror, waiting to see legendary Ghost Army.
I think I'm going to head back to the tent now and settle down, get a little bit of kip, hopefully not get woken up in the night. I think it's going to be a very early start in the morning because it's going to get very light soon. Not long at all. Oh, what the hell? There's a bloke stood next to my tent. What the That has absolutely scared the out of me. I'm not kidding you. I was walking down there. I'm telling you right now, there was somebody stood right here. I'm not kidding you, the hairs on my arms are stood up. My skin is crawling. Right there. Man, there's no way I'm staying here tonight. No way. I can't stay here. I'm going to have to pack the tent up and go in the dark. I mean, I kind of looked in this grass here to see if someone was about, you know, like doing a prank or something. But there's no one in here, and I would have heard them move off. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. This is terrifying.
So tell me about this place then, Glenn, and your experience. You were pretty shook up in the first scene, I've got to say.
Yeah, well, I saw something. I saw something or somebody.
You genuinely saw something?
Yeah, and you can actually see it on the footage very, very briefly as I lift the camera up. You can see something tall stood by my tent.
Oh my God. See, again, my hairs have gone up my head and I don't have hairs.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I took a number of cameras with me on that trip. I took like a night vision camera that I'd bought, and it's a real cheap piece of junk. But it has the infrared filter taken off, you know. And so I started filming with that. I thought, you know, I'll just kind of do a little bit of a wrap up before I get into the tent, and then talk in the tent, and then that's it. Good night. And as I approached the tent, I saw something or probably somebody stood next to the tent. I was like, what the hell? And I spun the camera around, walked right up to the tent, and looked in the long grass around because I was sure there's somebody there. And I thought, well, I've got all this on film. That's great. Got home, and the camera had cut out as I'd swung it up. But you do get a fleeting glimpse. So if your listeners are interested and they go and have a look at that video, you can go frame by frame and you can see somebody stood by the tent. And that absolutely freaked me out. So the idea of Sutafell is every this is how the story goes. Every Midsummer's Eve, a ghost army is supposed to march across the top. I think it's. I'm trying to remember now. Is it Cromwell's army or? Right. Anyway, it's been spotted. It was spotted hundreds of years ago by loads of people that were deemed to be sane. But I didn't see a ghost army, but I did see something. No idea what.
Weird that the camera cut out, though, isn't it?
Very weird and very annoying because when I tell this to people, like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, and it's just.
I'm thinking there's some sort of ghostly intervention in that. I mean,
possibly.
Yeah, I do believe in stuff like that.
You do? Oh, okay. So so you won't go camping there then.
but you still go out on your own.
Yeah, I'm more concerned of it being a person. I was more worried about there's someone just lurking around the tent than being a ghost or anything like that. But yeah, I don't think it still wouldn't put me off. No.
Your prints are beautiful.
Thank you.
They're on the website. I've talked with a number of landscape photographers about this subject of print sales and how the genre and the industry has changed in that there's much less reliance, sadly, I think, in my mind, upon print sales in terms of a photographer's business these days?
It's a tricky one because I don't really push the photography much on the videos.
No.
I don't want to. I want to say I'm the worst businessman ever. I feel guilty about talking about any kind of products or anything like that. And I think the amount of times I try to talk about a photograph on the video or go and visit the website and I end up cutting it out.
Yeah.
I definitely don't make enough to live on, that's for sure. I get a few sales a week perhaps. Some weeks are great, they'll come flooding in, and then other weeks are just nothing. But that could well be just because I'm just not built that way to market as such,
Yeah.
I guess that's the creative way, isn't it? A lot of creators are the same.
I think a lot of creatives think that way. I was saying this to somebody the other day. I was mentioning it was a wedding photographer actually. He was talking about the amount you should charge your clients, and he's quite a well-known photographer, and he said never actually charge your clients what you can afford yourself. He said it was years. He's at the top of his game now, but he said it was years before I could afford myself, and I quite like that phrase. I thought that was quite good.
That is very good, actually. Yes, I've got that one.
Good bit of advice.
Because you're a wedding photographer, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing that for then?
20 years. 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. One day I'll be good at it.
I've seen the photographs and they are absolutely stunning.
Oh, that's
really
very kind.
stunning.
We're very derogatory about ourselves, aren't we, photographers?
We are.
I get told off for that. And I wonder sometimes whether I play on that just a little bit. Or maybe it's a British thing. I think
it's a British thing. Yeah, I really do. And maybe a generational thing as well. Yeah. Can you see yourself just doing that for the foreseeable, or are you?
I think who's interviewing who here? I think I like it. I like it.
Turn the tables.
Turn the tables. I don't know, Glenn. I quite like the idea of doing lots of different photography.
Yes.
In fact, a guest who appeared on the show very, very recently said, I don't see myself, he said, as a food photographer. That's not what I am. He is a photographer.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we get lost in labels, don't we?
Yes, that's a really good one, actually. Yeah. Because who wants to be pigeonholed into one specialized area? It is photography, and it could be anything. Yeah.
Well, he described one of the latest books he'd worked on for a publisher, and he said, I did portraits, I did food, I did landscapes, I did interiors, and I said, hang on a minute, you just described a wedding photographer. Because
that's true, yeah.
And I'm sure you also do all these things, when you're photographing places, landscapes, going to places, journeys, insides. You're a photographer, aren't you?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's almost like we feel we need these labels. Maybe it's because of the big god of SEO or something like that. I don't know. It's incredible, isn't it, to think of... when I look at the sizes of audiences watching your videos, your titles, it's incredible, isn't it, to think of audience sizes many times more than a large football stadium watching one single film. It's quite special, isn't it?
It is. Absolutely, and particularly that video, the one with the tent and the wind and the snow.
I know, that was huge.
It was. It's just shy of 2 million now, and I'm thinking that's kind of embarrassing to think that nearly 2 billion people have watched this buffoon on the side of a mountain. It's really embarrassing,
but that's what it is, and
it's incredible to be able to reach that amount of people. Yeah, 15, 20 years ago, you'd never have done that. You could never have reached. Just your average Joe being able to reach that many people, it just couldn't happen. Yeah, it's amazing.
What do you think you need to do as now you've become full-time on YouTube? You're a photographer, but you've become full-time on YouTube. What do you need next to grow the channel?
I'm absolutely desperate to do a journey of some kind, or journeys. Yeah. So I like the idea of multi-episode series.
Yes.
So things that just continue on from one to the other.
Yeah.
So I'd love to do a road trip, perhaps, something maybe that's over days or weeks. And I've even got one that will last months, an idea that I'm kind of working on, perhaps for next year. And I don't know, it's a real risk because I think quite a large chunk of my audience are just here for the Lake District. They love the Lake District.
Yeah.
And out of that chunk, that people there just for the Wainwrights, they're not interested in anything else.
Yeah.
But I also know there is another very large chunk that came off the back of a Scotland road trip that I did last year. The video for that.
Oh, this was the Old Man of Store.
No, there's another one. There's it was to Sullivan.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That did really well, and it brought in an audience that wanted to see more of that kind of content. And I desperately want to make more of that kind of content as well. So that's what I'd like to do, and hopefully it'll resonate with an audience as well.
I personally think it's you, though, Glenn, that people are coming for. And as long as you're not necessarily changing it too much, you know, I mean, nobody wants to watch Glenn go for a walk around the local Tesco in a film, but whatever mountain you're climbing, whatever hill you're climbing, Everest or base camp or whatever, I think that's what people are in for. They're invested in you, aren't they?
Well, I'd like to think so, and it's great that you think that as well. I mean, that's brilliant. If that is the case, then that'll work. That'll work for me. If I can then pretty much go and do anything except for walking around Tesco, and the audience will follow. I mean, that is the dream, isn't it? That's perfect. As long as it has, I think as long as it always has the theme of outdoors and a journey and some walking involved and some photography as well involved. I think people probably would enjoy that.
Well, I'm going to challenge you with a difficult last question.
Oh no!
Yeah. This one I ask everybody. Well, not everybody. Most people. I started asking this about a year back.
And Google it.
And it's too late now. I'm not sure I need to ask, actually, in some respects, because I think you've answered this as you've gone along. But if I asked you to consider why you do this, what is your why? Why do you go up these mountains? Why do you make these films? What is it that makes you do this?
I think there's a number of answers to that, the why. I think there is that deep connection with nature. And I think, like I mentioned in the bio on the website, if I don't get out, I am a grumpy sod. So I have to get out no matter what. And I think making the videos kind of scratches that creative itch as well. Yeah. Maybe not to the degree that I'd like to. I'd love to do more cinematic type of footage, but there again, I do like connecting with the audience and just talking and just come along. I think going it all in on YouTube has just given me this freedom that I don't think I've ever had. So now I just feel totally free of the grind. That kind of grind. Still grindy now because there's a lot of work involved, but it's at my pace, and then I can get out and get into nature.
And my thanks to Glenn, aka Black Crag. Absolute pleasure talking with you, Glenn. It really was. And yes, I can't wait to do a walk with you and to take that particular path that we were planning in our conversation. We've got to do it now because we planned it. It's a plan. It's in place. Well, sort of. And that's it for today. If you can't wait until next Friday and you want to walk a little further together, then the Extra Mile Edition 94 is waiting for you. The Extra Mile is part of our private Patreon channel, supported by a wonderful community that we call Extra Milers. Each week there is an extra show. You see, you go the extra mile for me, and I go the extra mile for you. And this week, Extra Miler, because it's important that many of the guests who appear on the show are you and your stories. Paul Hudson joins me this week, and we talk about encounters, the people we meet as we walk. And, Paul's ability to then take that conversation that he has, and it's wonderful to watch. It really is, as you'll gather as we talk on the Extra Mile this week. He shares a few, I suppose, they're not really secrets, but some tips on photographing people. Not necessarily, although he's got so many decades of experience of making photographs and portraits, not necessarily technical tips, more tips on communication, conversation, because that really is it's a conversation we've been having quite a lot of late. That's what it's about. So it's called Encounters, his photo project, and what we've done is we've sort of put it into chapters, as it were. So he takes one person per chapter, and we have a we have a chat about that person, and I share the picture, the actual picture that he made, on the show page of the Patreon page as well.
On this week's Extra Mile.
People can say I'm a photographer. In fact, quite often the lead in to the conversation is they say, oh, you've got a camera, that looks posh or that looks old, because I'm usually carrying the Leica M11 around my neck.
One of those cheap old cameras, yeah.
Those cheap box camera things. And they'll say, oh, that looks old. And then I'll say, oh, yes, and you have to manually focus it, blah, blah, blah. And that begins the conversation. So it's worthwhile having. But it acts on two levels, that level, but also the level that they then, when I start to say, well, would you mind if I make a few portraits of you? They're kind of half expecting it.
Here's a noise I've not been hearing much of late. In fact, if I get my camera quickly, I'll get a picture. Hold on. Can you hear that? It's a barge, and the reason why I've not been hearing too many of those is for quite a while this navigation, this part of the river I walk along was closed. It was shut because of the flooding. The floods went around the locks for starters, so you couldn't navigate through the locks. Some of the paths, I suppose, I don't know, you couldn't tell the difference between the river and the path. So yeah, I'm hearing more now, more barges. There we go. That's a summer sound, pups, that really is. Our PS to the show is to come, but before that, we need a play-out song just to make some final frames to or think about what's been said today. And it's certainly one that you'll recognise because it features each week as the last instrumental theme of the programme. But what you might not know is that it does have lyrics and is a song in the more traditional form of the word. Martin Proctor suggested this one. Neil, I know you get your music from Artlist for the show, and I've recently joined myself. You did use my code, didn't you, from the website? It earns me much respect from the good people at the List of Art. I found the end theme by happy accident looking for a song for a slideshow of mine, but it was the one with the lyrics. I said to myself, this sounds familiar. And so it is. Could you play it as one of your famous, not so famous, play-out songs? Martin, my absolute pleasure. This is called Moon Mother by Richard Farrell and Zephyr Gold.
What's there to hold in the light of this moon? My mind keeps searching, but my heart decides. Thoughts can be cruel, they're not mine to own. The space unravels when you let go. What's yours, it ain't mine. That energy goes today. The feather in the fire will blow it home your way. Moon mother, open your arms. Moon mother, this magic's just begun. Moon mother, reach for my heart so I can feel your essence in me. How to unfold when this knot is so tight. Each step is chosen to reveal the light. Days left wondering, am I back here again? The shadow inside, waking your soul. What's mine is lost to time, our home is in the space. The bird who walks the line, just use those wings and rise. Moon mother, open your arms. Moon mother, this magic's just begun. Moon mother, reach for my heart so I can feel this essence. Time to wake up in the that a hole in the light of this moon. My mind keeps searching, but my heart decides thoughts can be cruel. They're not mine to hold. The space unravels when you let it go.
Moon Mother by Richard Farrell and Zephyr Gold. Right, let's make one final, put your letters and your thoughts down for a second. One final sketchbook from today's Photo Walk show. Thank you for joining me. It wouldn't have been the same without you. Oh, hang on a moment. So I need to, because it's really quite bright, I want to get the difference between the path that's it's a bit of dappled light that's perfectly exposed and where it drops away to practically nothing. So I've stayed at f8 actually, or f5.6, 220 shutter speed, 160 ISO. There we go. Back along the path. What have you found, pups? No, leave that alone. I don't know what it is you're eating, but come on, this way. Just a few closing thoughts before the PS. My sincere thanks to you. If you are or you're about to become an extra miler, we'll keep building this wonderful community of kindness in the photographic and walking world together. A safe place to share our thoughts about this thing that we do, photographing and walking. Today on the Extra Mile, as I said, Paul Hudson shares some stories he calls encounters, and it's truly inspired me for a very English steam rally that I'm going to be going to this, tomorrow actually, if you're listening to this on the day it's released. It's truly inspired me to make some portraits at this particular event. I'm going as the guest of Extra Miler Harriet Langridge, who I think helps organise this wonderful event. So I'd like to emerge maybe with next week's Extra Mile recording, where I get to talk with the incredible characters that I make portraits of. There we go, said it now. It's a live challenge. Now, if you could help me, please, I'd be very grateful. On the show page, there are some handy buttons to help you share the show. They're underneath the player, but also if you could be sure to press that follow, like and subscribe button on your podcast app so that I can let you know when new episodes are coming out. My thanks to Neil Ford, who looks after IT, Andrea Gilpin, who's across Instagram, and Kelly Mitchell, who looks after our Facebook members. A postscript for the show then. An unattributed one today, though I suspect it could be applied to many of the wondrous places on Earth, like the Lake District. I did look up a few Wainwright quotes, actually, such as "There's no such thing as bad weather, only unsuitable clothing." I didn't realise it was Wainwright that said that. And then "The fleeting hour of life of those who love the hills is quickly spent, but the hills are eternal." And the rather more earthy one of his, talking about one of the mountains in particular, they all have fabulous names. He said, "One can forget even a raging toothache on haystacks." So I do plan to go and walk there with our guest, Glenn, though I suspect I'll be slightly more out of puff than I am right now talking to you. But I'll leave you with a PS, and it's this. You may leave the Lake District, but once you've been, it will never leave you.
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.